Hi, everybody. This is Chris Frew with BioBuzz for another of our What's the Buzz episodes where we interview ecosystem builders from around the country. I'm excited today to be joined by the president and CEO of California Life Sciences, who's also the chair of the Council of State Bioscience Associations. So Mike, you're an ecosystem builder on multiple levels. Mike Guerra, welcome to the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear your perspective on both California as well as nationally. So I'm excited for the conversation today. For those of you who are just joining us, again, we're here at BioBuzz. We focus on community building and ecosystem building, really focusing on storytelling, programming events, and workforce. So this interview series is our opportunity to talk to people like Mike who are on the ground doing that, building different ecosystems like in California and across the country. This program is sponsored by our really good friends at Qnova Life Sciences. We got the opportunity to join Qnova this year out in San Francisco, actually, at JP Morgan this year, where they have a big forum that they do as one of the side forums there. And I think had 13 or 1,400 companies come through for partnering meetings this past year. They have another partnering virtual event coming up in a week and a half. So please check out Qnova Life Sciences. Really amazing partner of ours and a big part of why we can put these programs together. So Mike, would you mind let's start off, can you give us an introduction to yourself and kind of the organization you run?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So I'm proud to be the leader of California Life Sciences. We've been around for over 30 years, actually, but in various names from our early days, and then Bay Bio and merged a little over 10 years ago to become CLS as we stand today. We have about 1,300 members across California, and we really represent the entire ecosystem. One of the things that I think elected officials value when they talk to us is the diversity of our membership. We have academic and research institutions and small spin-outs of academia, but all the way to the largest of the big pharma, big biotech, big medtech, et cetera. So very proud of that diversity of membership and how we support them from a policy and advocacy perspective, from a membership benefit perspective with cost savings programs and workforce development, et cetera.
That's great. I appreciate that. And then you're also this year recently the chair for the Council of State Bioscience Association. So you're now working with your peers all across the country. Can you just give us a little bit about that role and what that organization does?
Yeah, CSBA is made up of 48 state associations across the country, and there's various regions. I think there's 7 regions that are represented in those 48 states. And what we do is we try to get together. We work very closely with Bio to support the life sciences industry overall, and we're trying to bring a little bit more voice to CSBA and brand recognition so that elected officials understand what I believe is the power of the CSBA. Not only is it 48 states, but over 10,000 life sciences companies are represented, millions of jobs across the US. So that voice, in my opinion, should be stronger than my voice or individual voices from states, but really leveraging that. And then leveraging best practices and how we can support other states in the industry across the country. So very excited to take on this role and work with those other states to continue to support life sciences.
That's great. Yeah, I often say, Mike, that this is a team sport. It takes a village. So you're really pulling the team together for the whole country. So let's start off with California. Love to hear, in terms of California, you just talked about all the members. California is kind of like the birthplace of biotech. It's often called, right? Like, we all know like the Genentech story. Tell us about how where does California sit in this national landscape, in biotech, and how do you talk to people about really, what's happening in California, the impact? I know it's a loaded question, but.
Well, I'm proud of what California has done, and certainly being the birthplace of biotechnology, as you mentioned. Certainly be remiss if I didn't mention actually Genentech's 50-year anniversary is this year. And we wouldn't be here doing what we do in life sciences, I think, without what Genentech has done for the country and the world, really. Um, Now, the environment in California is a little bit different. I mean, we do have two of the largest hubs in the world in San Francisco and San Diego, and most impactful, which has just a great workforce there and talent um, there. Unfortunately, California can also be one of the more challenging states to work in. Legislation is not always favorable to healthcare and to life sciences overall. There's a lack of tax incentives and things for companies to stay here, where other states are making significant investment in life sciences, in workforce development, in trying to get R&D, manufacturing, you name it. So we have our challenges, and we're able to persevere in many ways, but it's getting harder and harder, especially with NIH cuts and different things that have happened. We get some of the most NIH funding and SBIR grants anywhere in the country here, and those lowering or going down is a huge impact, and it's an impact we're going to feel for years and years because people don't know what they're going to have and how they invest, and so that impact to academia makes it even that much harder. So it's kind of a trickle down into what we have to deal with here in California.
Well, I'm curious on that, Mike, if you could dive deeper, like, without the incentives, you're still seeing a lot of, like, very good success. Again, two of the top hubs in the country. What do you hear from your members, or what do you see that attributes to that success? Is there a culture? Is it the talent, the research combination? I mean, I'm just curious how you
And
look at that from, like, on the ground, what you hear and see.
I think it's all of the above. For all the challenges we have here to have companies be successful, there's also all kinds of advantages. In South San Francisco and in San Diego, in one zip code, a couple mile radius, there's hundreds and hundreds of companies, life science companies, big and small. So the brain trust from an R&D perspective and an executive perspective is huge. So companies want to start up in these hubs because they know it's a very incestuous relationship and there's amazing talent to be had. So that is a big driver. We also have a lot of venture capital and funding here in California, in not only in life sciences, but in tech and you name it. So there's significant upside from those things, but cost of living, regulations, lack of tax benefits, et cetera, is the downside. So the companies have to weigh what they can afford to do, what, if they're getting their initial seed funding or Series A, B, whatever the case may be, how long can they make it? Can they make it longer in California versus having to go somewhere else? And what is the benefits? So a lot of pros that can be weighed and that we talk about, but there's some challenges as well.
It's interesting, and like talking to some of your colleagues here in Maryland and Virginia, Ohio, and different places. Every state has, the things that are going well and things that are not, right. And it's interesting because none of them are the same. But it does seem like there's, like, several themes, right, around talent, around investment, R&D, and the tax incentives and the other government things kind of go up and down. But there's some kind of non-tangibles that every company needs. And it sounds like some of those non-tangibles, you guys are doing really well.
Absolutely. It's really what has been the framework of why we were the birthplace and are the birthplace of biotechnology. And so those tangible slash intangible, compared to how you look at it from a finance perspective or regulation perspective, a lot of that outweighs those other challenges. But it's getting tougher and tougher. It's harder and harder to keep the workforce here, to keep the talent. We have some of the best academic institutions in the world, and then they go from here and can't afford to stay in California if they don't get a high enough paying job. So there's just that constant pull for companies to decide where do they want to be headquartered. R&D is great. You get past R&D, manufacturing in California is slim.
Yeah. Well, we California just hosted 60 or 70,000 people earlier this month at the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference. I'm curious, coming out of that, I've read a lot of articles, seen a lot of things. Curious what you're seeing and what your members are like. What is the signal that you're seeing versus kind of the noise that's out there that in the industry? Do you have any comments or any thoughts on kind of what you're hearing from your members coming out of that that program or that week?
Yeah, it's I think the bright side is there's an overall feeling of, call it, cautious optimism with a lot of the people I talk to, and which is not unusual. JPM brings some level of excitement every year for life sciences because so many people are brought here. And the noise in the stock market and the uptick that we've been seeing, probably is a little bit misleading. The signals we're most worried about is really what's coming out of DC and Sacramento. So while there's this sense of cautious optimism and venture capital seems to have kept the quote powder dry and is able to make investments in the right areas, the worry of what we're seeing in DC and Sacramento from a legislative perspective, and if bad legislation continues to be passed, that's going to be the biggest industry of which direction the industry is going to go. The current federal and state regulatory environment can and will have a major impact on our industry. And issues like the NIH cuts I mentioned before, MFN on the drug pricing, that there hasn't been any change to the pill penalty within the Inflation Reduction Act, antitrust reform and R&D tax credit in California, AI regulations in California. Those can all devastate the pipeline and really have an irreversible impact on innovation. So we got to do what we can to really figure out how we get past some of these legislative challenges so that we can be more cautiously optimistic and the industry can do what they're here to do, which is continue to save lives, make people healthier across the world.
You bring up the legislation in a really good light, and how it can impact innovation. And how important is that now more than ever, given the competition we're seeing out of China? Like, I feel like it's a tale of two stories, right? There's a country who's doing everything they can to kind of, drive innovation and decouple barriers. And now we're seeing, kind of a little bit of the opposite here, where there's some barriers being put up to the speed at which we can kind of drive innovation forward.
Yeah, it really is a critical time here with last year's NIH cuts and trying to get SBIR reauthorized. China has just been on a tear with investments. We have many academic institutions within membership and that sit on our board, and literally within hours of finding out that their NIH grants or different things were cut, they're getting contacted by investors and or Chinese government offering to fund their research. And some of it is for the whole institution. Some of it is lab by lab. They're literally offering people, we'll give you 20 years. It used to be you had to come to China to do the work. Now they're saying, we'll give you 20 years of funding. You can do it anywhere in the world. So it is getting much more competitive, and the U.S. can't win by trying to slow China down. We got to win by speeding ourselves up. We have to continue to invest. We have to continue to take it serious that we are the world leader in innovation. And if we continue to look at bad policy or cut the funding that's helped enable so much of this innovation, it'll be extremely detrimental to our industry.
Yeah. I was we were talking a little bit about this before the call too. I was at a roadshow for the NSCEB, which is a report delivered to the Senate this year on U.S. competitiveness and biotechnology, and that was the signal that they sent as well. Like, there's a short time frame that the U.S. can respond, and it is about how do we systemically speed up, not put up barriers to slow them down, but we need to speed up as an industry. Do you have any thoughts on that, on how industry can respond I mean, obviously policy is one thing, but you know, like from a control what you can control, what can your members do, or what can industry do to respond right now and kind of try to pick up the pace?
Well, I mean, continuing to collaborate and work with each other within the industry, work with the groups like ourselves as trade associations and different things. Trying to do as much to keep their manufacturing and their programs onshore, partnering with companies that are U.S. based. It just trying to keep them at bay a little bit when they're making significantly more investment than the US, and helping us educate the government on why this is important. And it's not about what happened this year or last year, because you're not going to feel the cuts today. But those academic institutions that I mentioned last year that had lost the funding, got it back, lost it, bridged it, they had to lay off teams and entire labs and all these different things. Many of them had to take pay cuts. We're going to feel that down the road because we're not going to see new drug development. We're not going to see new molecules. You're not going to see these things spin out because it's going to take that much longer and or never come because we lost that talent, especially if those very talented people end up going to China. So we got to work together and we got to educate the government on why this is so important. And not just the federal government, but the state by state need to help support and fill that in. I testified in a biotech select committee earlier this year, and it was about NIH funding and what could California do to support those companies and academic institutions that lost NIH funding. So it's not just a national thing. The states need to get involved and support as well so that we can continue to be the leaders.
Yeah. I'm curious what you're doing at the state level. Collaboration, you've brought that up a couple of times, as a competitive advantage, or how are you encouraging members, and how are you encouraging that collaboration locally?
Yeah, I mean, we work within our membership and all of their government affairs folks at the state level. We also work with our other trade association partners that are both from California but across the country, the national trades, bio and pharma, on the biotech level, and AvaMed, NDMA on the medtech side, to really try to support good legislation and keep out the bad legislation. California, in a good way, actually passed one of the most broad sweeping PBM reform bills of any state, which is a good thing for our industry, and one of the few big pieces of legislation we can point to that California led the way on, something that was fairly unexpected, quite honestly. Many other states are looking at that bill to model their own off of, as well as members of Congress. We have the biggest congressional delegation from California to look at that. So, how do we highlight and promote the good and educate on intended and unintended consequences of the bad? That's our main job, and we do that with a whole lot of partners.
Yeah, partnership. We like a couple key phrases, but partnership, collaboration. I feel like it's more important than ever before when we start feeling these pressures. Yeah. So I'd love to, in speaking about collaboration, and some of the collaboration you're seeing, or you're helping with the Council of State Bioscience Association, CSBA. What are some of the initiatives that you see that you're bringing? We talked about some legislation, but how are states kind of coming together and collaborating? I think that'd be important for our audience to know. They might not know that like these state associations are collaborating. When you're part of a state association, you're not just getting insights from Maryland or California or whatever. So could you talk a little bit about that organization and how you're really trying to drive that?
Yeah, I mean, with the CSBA, one, again, it's 48 state associations, and there's only a couple that have more than one, which California happens to be one of. But it's really trying to leverage the broader voice and the power of what all those states can do on these various topics. And collaboration and competition is there on both sides. The states are always going to compete. They're always going to compete for federal funding and different things, and companies that are looking to, move headquarters, build manufacturing. Those are ways that we're always going to compete, but we have and need to continue to come together to fight those bad pieces of legislation like we talked about. But one of the other ways we come together is around workforce development, and I know it's something that you and your team work on, and we're lucky that I have a couple of peers within our industry that are the leaders of some other trade associations within the CSBA, and they've started the LSWC, which is a Life Sciences Workforce Collaborative, and they're really working to build and protect a competitive workforce, so we can ensure that the United States continues to lead in life sciences innovation. And as we know, talent development starts early, and that with LSWC working with all of our other states, and they're working on state grants, they're working on federal grants, working on collaborations with large companies and industry to continue to build and develop our workforce. And it's really a terrific way that we can collaborate versus compete and continue to protect it, because it also goes back to really collaborating around China that we've already talked about. It's critically important for us to advocate for those policies that support life sciences, so that we can withstand that competitive threat from China. And they're aggressively seeking out our workforce and our talent and those different things. So we're doing that with the CSBA, we're doing that with the LSWC, we do it with bio and pharma, the national trades, as well as our partners, the medtech side with AvaMed, MDMA as well. But really coming together to try to support all of those different facets. I think there's more collaboration than people probably would think actually goes on within our industry.
Yeah, I'm glad you're sharing that, Mike, because I hear at the ground level. I mean, I'm sitting here today. I'm in a medtech and life sciences incubator. There's 30 companies where our office is located. We've got 3 VCs here, and we're at the City Garage Life Science and Tech Park in Baltimore. And so I engage every day with a lot of people that are early stage, their heads down. They're fighting every day to drive their product forward, find funding, everything. To your point, I don't know if they realize how much collaboration is going on to solve the problems that they're feeling every day. I mean, they do plug in locally, the local trade association, the Maryland Tech Council, and whatnot. But I think it's very positive to hear from you how much is really going on, because these are problems that I hear, I know you do, every single day from people.
Yeah.
So for the workforce collaborative, I haven't researched that too much. Is that within the council? Is that a part of it, or is that something separate?
So it used to be called CSBI, Council of State Biotech Institutes, and then last year they worked to spin it out so that it had more flexibility to work. So it's not directly part of the CSBA, but they work in partnership with the CSBA. All of the founders of LSWC are CEOs from other state trade associations within the CSBA. Most of them either have an institute or some portion of their organization that really focuses on workforce development. So yeah, it's a terrific group of folks that are really trying to bring more light, more education, more funding into workforce development, and making sure that it continues to be invested in and not forgotten about.
Mm-hmm.
So we're very lucky that they're putting forth some of that effort, and doing it at a national level. So they're doing this so that we can, again, share best practices, leverage what people are doing, work together on grants, because to write a grant is an extremely difficult and long, arduous process to do. Especially if you're doing it state by state, different things. So this group is able to figure out how can we do it and go out into multiple states or get federal funding that can support different states. So yeah, really looking forward. It really just has been coming to fruition. It got launched at Bio last year in June, and we're starting to see them get their feet underneath them now.
That's great. Well, we'll include all this information in our show notes for sure, so people can follow in and kind of follow up and learn more about some of these initiatives. So Mike, when you think about the year ahead, right, as we're still in January, so we can say we got 11 full months ahead of us. What are some of the things that you think and you see out there that will kind of separate some of these ecosystems that are really making progress and really start to kind of support and work through some of these challenges versus those that don't? Like, are there some things that you think will really separate them?
Yeah, I mean, right or wrong, I think that the ecosystems that really excel are the ones where they have a good policy environment, like we've talked about, potential for financial investment. So they have VC and financial investment opportunities, and tax incentives that support our industry. That's what you really need to pour some gas on that fire within those different ecosystems. In the life science ecosystem that excel versus staying stuck largely depends on those regulatory environments that are created by those individual states. When the governors of other states make it very clear that they are all into life sciences and they invest within the life sciences industry, they invest in workforce development, in housing, in areas in academia, you name it, that they really are trying to invest in all aspects of the ecosystem, including tax incentives, then companies have options, especially those in California, of where they want to go. I think that's the excel versus staying stuck and where those different hubs can go. And while California's life sciences ecosystem is dominant on the innovation hub in the U.S., we're seeing other states slowly closing the gap. And a lot of it is because of the regulatory environment in those states and the cost of doing business, the cost of living, tax incentives that I already mentioned. So, we're seeing that happening, and in those innovation hubs that are already there and or growing, they're stepping up, making intentional long-term investments in the life sciences industry, and it's making it more attractive and adding opportunity for those companies, small, mid, and larger, to decide where they want to be. So, we're going to continue to advocate for California and get them to understand why it's important for us to make it an easier place to live, a more cost-effective place to live, that there's better legislation that's being passed that really supports life sciences. And those things will all help continue to grow and excel our ecosystem here within California. If not, we're going to be stuck, to your point, and we're going to see other states and other ecosystems continue to grow.
Well, I wish you a lot of luck this year for all of our sakes, Mike, in moving some of that forward. You're fighting a really good, important battle in the year ahead on some of these legislation fronts that are going to impact all of us. And I think that's a really good message to take back, that it's got to be several things that happen, but the legislation is one of those kind of through lines that without that government support, some of the other stuff isn't going to be enough to keep it going, especially in this global competition we're in.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't say it any better than that. I think that's a terrific summary. We got to continue to educate, continue to work together and collaborate and do what's best for the industry at large.
Well, like we were talking about before, this is a team sport, and taking a therapy to market is a team sport. It takes a lot of different people. It takes legislation, vendors, suppliers, the right facilities. So I think if any industry can collaborate and come together and partner, I'm putting some bets on that we can do it, and I think there's a lot of opportunity as much as there's some challenges. But I think what are we if not Americans that we stand up and rise to the challenge? So I'm hoping this is a really good year, and I look forward to staying in touch, and I hope we can continue to follow you. And if there's any updates that you have from the work you're doing, please reach out and let us know how we can help share and promote it, or any initiatives you're working on. But again, I want to thank you for joining me today, and really thank you for all the work you're doing to drive the ecosystem nationally and in California forward.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for having me, and absolutely happy to stay in touch and help however I can.
That'd be great. Well, thank you all for tuning in to this episode of What's the Buzz. I hope you'll come back next week. We have actually a really good friend of mine coming on to talk about building virtual clinical trials and how that's impacting the rare disease. Next month's Rare Disease Month. So how that's impacting rare disease both in India and the U.S. Harsha Rajashimi also runs Indo-USA Rare, which is an organization that helps to bridge the rare disease community between India and the U.S. So I hope you'll join me next week for that. It's going to be a really good conversation. He's an amazing guy and does a lot to build the community in the rare disease space. So Mike, thank you again for your time today. Wishing you a good rest of your day, and I look forward to staying in touch.